I am back with another edition of Who Wore It Better and Why. Earlier this week on my Instagram stories, it was celeb versus celeb, and I had you guys vote on who you thought wore it better. And now I'm here to break down why the outfits looked more flattering on one woman and less flattering on the other. And this week we had one where your votes were so close, so I cannot wait to dive into that one. If you're new here, I'm Cortney St Clair, your transformative style coach. I help empower, educate, and inspire women to level up their confidence and become magnetic by leveraging the power of style and feminine energy. If you're catching this on IGTV and you're not yet following me, make sure you hit that follow button. And if you are seeing this on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. I want to reiterate that the purpose of these videos is not to body shame. It's not to style shame. It's not to put anybody down for taking a style risk that didn't play out in their favor. It's simply to educate you as a fashion consumer on why certain pieces are more flattering on certain people, or how different accessories can manipulate the way that the eye sees the body, so that when you head out to shop or head into your closet to get dressed, you know exactly what to look for and what to avoid in order to look and feel your best. But in order to do that, you're going to need to know your body shape. So if you haven't already downloaded your free body shape guide and you're watching this on Instagram, you can DM me to snag it, or you can grab it at the link in my bio. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then the link is down below. First up was Kim Kardashian versus Zoe Saldana, and Zoe stole this one with 87% of the vote. But I will say that this dress wasn't particularly the most flattering on either woman. They both have richly pigmented dark hair and tend to look better in clear, bright colors versus nudie dusted tones like this particular dress. The fit on the upper part of Zoe's body was also a little bit bulky. However, the reason this dress looked more flattering on her versus Kim comes down to body type. Zoe has a mesomorphic body, meaning she has some angle and some curve to her, but it's very subtle and soft. And this dress has these really large structured pleats on the bottom half. And pleats add fullness. Zoe's body can handle adding a little bit more fullness to create a more balanced body, whereas Kim is an endomorph. She has a lot of roundness and curve to her body. She has a very full bust and a very full hip line, and she doesn't need to use details such as pleats to add any extra fullness. That extra fullness from the pleats resulted in her looking bulky in this dress. The exaggerated curve of her waistline pulled the pleats out rather than allowing them to lay flat, which would have created vertical lines that elongated the body. But instead, she looks like she has no torso. She looks like two halves that connected at the waist, which make her look shorter than she actually is. Next up was Gwyneth Paltrow versus Jessica Simpson, and Jessica took this one home with 74% of the vote. So let's take a look at why. Jessica has a V-shaped body. She is fuller through the bust she's more full through the bust than she is through the hips. And the top half of this garment harmonizes with that V shape. The two black panels separated by the sheer panel in the middle creates that subtle V shape. And then there's the vertical line right across the natural waistline, which pulls the eye in because this is the smallest area of her body. And then the navy bottom half actually helps to create a little bit of fullness on the bottom half of her body because the navy is lighter than the black. It's like shading with an artist when they draw a picture, or highlighting and contouring with makeup. The darker color always sets things further back and makes them appear smaller, and the lighter color will bring things to the forefront or make things appear larger. So the colors of this garment work very well for her body shape to help create the illusion of more balance. She also went a little bit more dramatic with her makeup. This is a very simple looking piece, so that extra glam really took it up a notch. Whereas Gwyneth is an H shape. Her waist, hips, and bust, they're all fairly well in proportion to each other. And while this garment doesn't look bad on her, it does make her torso look a little bit abnormally long. You can see that the way that this garment fits on her, because she doesn't have a large bust to fill out that top half, the horizontal waist that sat perfectly at Jessica's waistline actually sits below Gwen's natural waist, which gives it more of a drop waist, which is actually preferable for H-shaped bodies. But in this case, the color change in the garment is making the crotch look like it's sitting lower, or maybe it is a poor fit and it is actually sitting lower. Either way, if this piece was all navy or all black, it probably would have looked more flattering on her, because a solid color would have mimicked the not too beautiful long column-like effect of her body, and it would have camouflaged the poor fit a little bit more, because it would have kept the eye moving up and down the body rather than having it broken up with the color change on the bottom half. She also kept her makeup very soft and natural looking. A bolder lip or some accessories also would have taken this piece to the next level on Gwyneth, which also would have distracted the eye from the weird drop crotch. Next up, we had Hilaria Baldwin versus Katy Perry, and Katy won this one with 78% of the vote. And this one really comes down to body shape. Katy has a beautiful balanced body shape. Her bust and hips are fairly in proportion to one another, and she has a nicely defined waist. It's very similar to the X body shape, only the waist isn't overly exaggerated or overly defined, whereas Hilaria, from what I can tell from her Instagram, has more of a V shape. She has a larger bust in proportion to her hips. So when Hilaria allows these sleeves to kind of drape over her arms, she created a horizontal line right across the fullest part of her body, which actually created the illusion of more fullness. Whereas Katy Perry chose to wear the sleeves as more of a cap sleeve, which pulls the eye up and out, giving the eye more of that X shape to follow. This would have been a beautiful option for Hilaria as well, pulling the eye up and out, while also harmonizing with the beautiful V shape of her body. The other thing to notice about this dress is that it has a low density print. Those large, really spaced out flowers means it takes more time for the eye to move from image to image, again adding more fullness, something Hilaria doesn't exactly need on the upper half of her body, but it works really well on Katy because her upper and lower body are already so balanced. It fills them both out the same and only makes her waistline appear smaller. Then Katy added this beautiful belt at her waist, which is the smallest point of her body. And when you have a well-defined waist and put a horizontal line across it, it creates this beautiful cinching effect. It pulls the eye right in. But when you don't have a particularly well-defined waist, a horizontal line across the middle actually widens that area, which is really contradictory when you think about it. But Hilaria doesn't exactly have a well-defined waist, so a belt would not have worked well for her in this case. Now, this dress has its own horizontal waistline in its design, but it is much more subtle. And again, it would have worked much better for her had she have pulled the eye up and out by wearing those sleeves up on her shoulders like Katy. It would have allowed that subtle design element to create more of that balanced illusion for her. Another thing that she could have done to elevate her look in this dress is to add accessories to help give the eye some other focal points. Adding some bracelets would have helped to draw the eye more to the bottom half of her body, creating the illusion of more fullness throughout the hips to balance with the fullness of her bust. And then we had Rita Ora versus Kendall Jenner with the closest vote yet, with Kendall just sneaking away with 55% of the vote. So let's take a look at why this was so close and what allowed Kendall to edge ahead. So I'll start off by saying that this piece is spectacular, and they both took a very different approach to styling it, which worked so well for both of their personal style vibes. Kendall kept it simple and sleek, while Rita made it a little over the top and edgy, and I think that personal preference for style played a big factor in the results of this vote, and I do think that they both rocked this piece. However, the thing that edged Kendall ahead for the win came down to fit. It always comes down to fit. Fit is king. This blazer dress looked a little bit baggy and bulky on Rita, while it fit Kendall like a glove. These two have different body types. Rita is a mesomorph with some curve to her body, while Kendall is an ectomorph. She has a lot of angle to her body. Rita has a full curvaceous bust line, and this piece does not have any flow to it. It is very stiff and structured, and it has a lot of beading detail, giving it a lot of weight. So instead of flowing over her bust line and following the curves of her body beautifully, it just created this tent-like effect, hiding her shape and making her look bulky. Whereas Kendall doesn't have a lot of roundness or curve to her body, this structured piece lays beautifully against her angular body, giving her this streamlined column effect. It also allowed all of the beading detail to lay flat as well. And the structure and the weight of this piece also fills her frame out nicely. It balances her out, whereas with Rita, it kind of weighs her down a little bit. As you can see in the results of the polls, it is never unanimous. You will never ever please or impress everybody when it comes to your style. So while the science of style is solid, there is also the art of style. So the science is why certain things work versus why they don't. And then the art is how you apply and combine those facts to create an expression of yourself. And that can come down to personal preference on whether or not you like one expression versus another. There's also the aspect of psychology. How a person feels in an outfit affects how they show up in it and the energy they give off that you receive. So even if the science is not perfect, if the person wearing the outfit is bringing the vibes, that will trump every time, which is why it's so important to make sure that the person that you are pleasing and impressing is yourself. But all three of those things combined, the science, the art, and the personal expression that allows you to bring the vibes, that creates a magnetic, show-stopping look. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful and you want me to create more just like it, please let me know by leaving a comment, giving this a like, and sharing it with your friends, because the collective energy of women rising together is so powerful. Until next time, get up, dress up, show up.